The present moment. Very often, we lose the present moment. Our mind wanders into thoughts of the past and the future. We have memories and plans of all kinds. Of course, this is natural to the mind's operation. But at the same time, we may lose ourselves. We may forget to live in the present. And is life not lived in the present, if it is lived at all? The sitting practice of meditation is a form of training to live in the present. Being willing to be trained in this way, being willing to train ourselves, we may develop a mind of the present and apply it to all the times and phases of our life as well as our dying process. Life lived in the present is a life of great potential depth and beauty, artistry, and communication.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Karelis, for being here and now, and for accepting the invitation in our studio to travel in and out from and towards our soul and our mind. I am grateful to Hermitage Urban Spiritual Public Hub and to Claudia Damok And I know that you work in the benefit of all this world, I think, but particularly for the people who hardly need. For example, you are the founder of Shambhala prison community, and when I heard about your epical life and work, I thought about this beautiful relation between our mind, which in fact is a kind of prison for people who never heard about, for example, observing their minds, and the real prison. And I know that your work was very important, that allowing people in the prison to be free there in the prison. And I was thinking that many of us who lives in freedom, we are not free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even this shakuhachi, it's coming from an community, prison community in Algeria, and I know that this is a part of Prison Mindfulness Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shambhala prison community that you founded, it's a part of this family of mindfulness.
Like a cousin, a close cousin.
A close cousin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's true. The mind is the basic prison. Seems to be. And doesn't matter too much about our circumstances. If the mind is imprisoning us, so mind seems to be the main thing. And then if we're incarcerated, that's good news. Because we could practice inside prison, practice meditation, uplift ourselves as much as we could with our freedom on the outside. Yeah.
Thank you for this rhythm that you have. This rhythm allowed me to connect and observe more, not being in this particularly usually hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Many things to be efficient, and thank you.
You too. Same rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the starting point for you on the way of observing your inner space and finding out how important this?
Well, I think we're born with this, actually. The capacity for self-reflection and for knowing when we're stuck. Very often, the first signal is, I'm stuck. It's not so much, I see my freedom, or I have a vision of my future, or some notion of spirituality, actually. Usually it's closer than that. So we feel some kind of blockage or some kind of pain that we can't quite explain. Then our natural curiosity starts to poke its head up and look around. And for myself, I think like that at a very young age. I remember as a relatively young child, maybe age 6 or 7, something like that, feeling a lot of joy and a lot of claustrophobia.
Joy and claustrophobia.
like at school, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. So always there, kind of primal thing. And then when I became of age and I looked out at the adult world, I was horrified.
We have
Honestly.
we have many reasons, in fact.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was realistic, I think. But it was not actually about the outside world as much as about myself. I felt that the challenge of meeting the world was great. And it wasn't for lack of having a decent path up to that time in the external sense, university and so forth. It was more a feeling of not fitting in and unable to live up to the general expectations.
General expectation.
You know, like middle class ideal.
And you are Harvard College graduate.
I did
Yes.
graduate
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not fitting in this world. No, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, in a fundamental way. You know,
yeah.
I could probably have applied for jobs and gotten them. It wasn't really the point.
Yeah.
So I started to look immediately after university. And I wandered around for a long time, living out of a backpack, reading books, looking for some wisdom tradition.
Yeah.
I read very widely and I found many. In the Buddhist tradition, I found same wisdom and more accessible. Because the Buddhist tradition in Asia was very much alive up to that time and still is. In other words, there were and are living teachers. And the teaching tradition had survived over millennia through the teacher-student relationship. So I felt it would be best to look there because of accessibility.
Living teacher.
Yes.
Living teacher.
I felt that was the linchpin. That's the connector. And I got very lucky. I read the books of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, for example.
Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche.
Yeah.
Who became your root master.
He did, yes.
Yes, this is one of Ocean of Dharma, one of
Yes.
his books.
And you have another one of his which I actually read in 1973, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism.
Yes, I will Cutting
Through Spiritual Materialism. Very important book.
Yes, and very interesting relation between spiritual materialism.
Yes.
It's a remarkable topic, and
Yes, that one. Very important. It's a book about genuine spirituality, not just about the Buddhist tradition, although it is specifically about the Buddhist path.
So you found your root master after several essays in this.
Yes. I began a sitting meditation on my own from books. And I spent 3 years trying to practice that way.
3 years on your own.
And I realized at a certain point I needed help. I went to see him talk. I went to hear him in Boston, Boston University, 1974, October. And it struck me very deeply.
What do you feel in the first moment? It's very important when we find our master. It is that something important, but very rare, in fact.
Well, there are different paths into that relationship. Generally speaking, it's best to go slowly because there's a chance of making a mistake, and that's a mistake you don't want to make.
In choose it the wrong master?
Yes, or the wrong community, or the wrong teaching stream, or one that doesn't suit you. Might be a good one, but doesn't suit you.
Yes.
There are many possible sidetracks. So the best protection
Yeah.
is a good cynical state of mind, a good skeptical state
Good
of mind.
skeptical and cynical.
Yeah, which Trungpa Rinpoche always encouraged.
Yeah. To doubt and to observe, and not to take.
To examine.
To examine.
And in particular, to examine oneself, I think.
Smile at fear. Welcoming the fear.
That book belongs to the Shambhala tradition, meaning the secular teaching stream that Trungpa Rinpoche evolved and articulated. That is a teaching based on insights of meditation without the Buddhist ideology or the Buddhist trappings, the Buddhist practices. It's has a purely human basis, you could say, and uses ordinary language such as fear. One of his greatest gifts to us, for sure.
The fear of existing without knowing why. It is
More, I would say, just plain fear. So not fear of something. In this case, it's fear before it finds its object.
Okay.
Usually when we talk about fear and overcoming fear, we are talking about, at least in part, the object of our fear.
Yes.
So fear of heights, fear
So
of intimacy.
fear without object, anxiety, in fact, kind of anxiety, fear without object.
Very close to anxiety, very close. But fear is a good example, actually, of this ordinary approach, or this secular approach. Fear is fear. Everybody knows what that is, right? So just working with the fear in itself is made possible through the sitting practice of meditation. We slow down enough that we could just be with it without doing something to it, not trying to fix it, for example.
To surrender, in fact.
Well, to surrender to our state of mind, whatever it is in that particular moment of experience. Yes. So you could say we surrender to whatever our mind is producing. Yes.
Difficult task.
Very difficult.
We usually having counter measures in each moment. What to do, what to.
Exactly. We're constantly responding.
Yeah. Yes.
That's right.
Yes. The myth of freedom. Freedom is a trap.
In this case, the idea of freedom.
Yes.
The idea that we could just plain be free of our circumstances seems to be a bit hopeful. We make a myth of it. Maybe our family obligations
Yes.
are difficult for us, so we seek to escape them, for example. Or our livelihood obligation. And so we seek a so-called free lifestyle. But it's a myth, because family connections, friends, society, the demands of society will return, even if we run away. So better not to create the myth, or at least to see it when it comes, to see it for what it is. It's a bit revolutionary thinking.
Life as it is, as it is.
Yes. Trungpa Rinpoche used to say, the kitchen sink. So the way we do the dishes, cleaning the house, answering the telephone, the nitty-gritty earthy details of everyday existence are what bring us reality. It's not some other world, like some spiritual other world. So really, this path then, whether on the Buddhist side or on the secular side, has nothing to do with escaping our ordinary life.
So simple, so profound. Not escaping from our lives, being in the present moment and not searching for something different there. Yes.
Something out there different that will save us.
Yeah. Yes. For example, after we finish this program, we'll be saved. It will be extraordinary.
Right. Something extraordinary.
Yes.
Not necessary.
Everything is ordinary.
Seems to be. Even the extraordinary is ordinary. Even if we have some experience which we think is transcendent, for example. Let us say we have a spiritual practice or we meditate and we think that we have a moment of breakthrough and finally we can leave behind our boring, mundane mind or life. Finally we can move on to something higher, better,
Yes.
purer. Those are just moments. Are they valid? Of course. Do they last? Of course not. So we come back down to earth. So we're not venerating what is special, particularly. What is higher, purer, not venerating in our own experience.
The heaven, the idealized objects, yes, looking there. Yeah.
Yes. For sure there is such a thing as transcendence. There is. There's such a thing as outgrowing our past habitual patterns. And we could say that's a form of transcending them. I think we can say that. But this is not a transcendence which is apart from ordinary reality. It's more like letting go of our grasping and our fixation in the context of ordinary reality.
Yes.
So it's not a matter of whether we're cleaning the floor or not. It's a matter of how we clean the floor, the attitude we take, the state of mind that's generated, what kind of practice we make of that.
To be more fluid, to allow the river of the life to flow and not to be stuck.
That would be great.
But even this is kind of idealizing.
Even that is kind of ideal.
Yes.
Yes. Between us and the flow is the detail of the reality. For example, irritation. We can't just wish our irritation to go away. It doesn't work. So we have to deal with it. If we have conflicted emotion, we have to deal with it. If we're fed up with feeding the children, we have to work with that in ourselves. Then there's some chance of a flow. I think the flow in some way comes from confidence. And what is the confidence? The confidence is the ability to work with our own state of mind, our own conflicted emotion, our own discursive thoughts. The confidence that there are none of those which are unworkable There are no states of mind which are unacceptable. In order to develop that familiarity from which the confidence is born, we need a discipline. There must be some kind of discipline if we have habitual patterns of this type. That's where the sitting practice of meditation comes in.
A discipline, a structure, some limits.
Structure, limits, and in particular a practice which brings us to the present moment. Mm-hmm. That seems to be the key.
You practice on your own 3 years after you met your root master.
I saw him speak.
Okay.
And I was very amazed by him because he was so calm. I never saw anybody like that.
Yeah.
Before he spoke at this first talk, which I attended, he looked around the audience for maybe 10 minutes. And what he was doing was looking at each person. There were maybe 600 people there. And he was looking at each one.
Really seeing each one, yeah.
I don't know what he saw, but he was looking. Mm-hmm. He took the time. And then I followed him for about 6 months. I wanted to make sure that he was real.
Testing.
I was testing, and he was testing me. And then I asked him if he would help me. He said yes. So then I started. He had us all working in the world. At that time we were hippies. Almost his entire community was made up of hippies. And he asked us to put on nice clothes, enter the workplace, have families. He suggested that we not run away from our middle class upbringing after the myth of freedom. So I did that. At the same time, I developed my meditation practice under his guidance. And I was lucky enough to spend time around him for 13 years before he passed away in 1987. Subsequent to his passing, I have had other great teachers also. He introduced us to other great teachers while he was alive. And so I took that cue and continued with some of those teachers and others as well.
Yeah. Hearing you and feeling this rhythm, I feel no need to speak and to ask, why to ask. Mm-hmm. We are in television and people are doing like this, asking questions. Mm-hmm. Instead of being present with you and your voice and to think, to anticipate another question. Mm. Typical.
Mm. Interesting. For television.
Yes, yes. And television, it's a mirror of what we're usually doing in daily life.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Maybe to start in this studio, in this television studio, not to ask anymore and to be here.
Maybe we could introduce the gap to television.
Yeah.
Why not?
The gap, yes.
Yeah.
How would it be?
Like this.
Like this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Little bit emphasis on the space as well as the content. Like when you make calligraphy with a brush,
And
brush
I know
stroke.
you like it. Yes.
I practice some, yeah. And I have a Japanese calligraphy teacher. When you make a calligraphy, you face, first of all, a blank page, white page, which can be intimidating. Just space. No guidance.
No structure.
No structure. And then at a certain point, you touch the handle of the brush, you dip the brush in the ink, you soak the hairs of the brush in the ink, make sure not too much, not too little. You raise the brush and you make your first mark. Comes from nowhere. Then you continue with the stroke. And if you're aware of the page, the blank page, at the same time as the stroke, there's a beautiful possibility. Maybe like playing the shakuhachi. Same, similar. So I studied and practiced under my teacher's guidance, and then when he passed away, I and his other students had to face the loss of him, which in our case, because he was so great and because our attachment was so great, was a significant challenge. Very significant. We knew what we had lost.
Deep pain. Yeah.
The pain and also the loss of guidance. You know, he was really very able to penetrate our confusion and neurosis and send messages of wakefulness, which he did in many ways. And we depended on that. Of course, he was always telling us not to depend on that. But still we did, and we do. So it was a time of confusion for me and many others. And I put emphasis at that time on my practice and study, especially since I had started to present the Dharma myself. And found different places to do that. For example, in the prisons.
Yeah, in the prisons.
Yeah.
You founded Shambhala Prison Community in what year?
It was incorporated in 96.
96.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had been working in prisons for about 3 years, I think, by that time.
Shall we look to a short picture in order to get a kind of taste, of flavor of your work? Yeah, this video is made with the founder of Mindfulness Spirit Institute. You know him? Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we're friends. And our work has followed a similar path, you could say. Yeah.
Okay, so we will be mindful of the movie. Yes.
Please.
This is a tough guy world, and we have to control all of their movement and their behavior because that's the way you keep an institution safe for everybody who lives in it. We have everybody here. Murderers and rapists, sex offenders, drug addicts, everybody.
My name is Dennis. I'm 53 years old. I'm serving a 15-year sentence for an assaulting my wife.
My name is Louis, 35, sold narcotics, since I was about 13 or so.
My name is Juan. I'm 34 years old. I'm here for second-degree murder. Yeah, sadly, it's my charge.
My name is Salim. I'm 39. I'll be 40 soon. And I was given a life term.
A lot of times what lands people in prison and what brings them back is a lack of good problem-solving skills and good communication skills.
Fleet approached us asking if he could do some work in here.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we were challenged by our union, wanted to know how we could possibly bring an ex-offender in.
I served 14 and a half years on a 25-year no parole sentence.
Hello.
Having served 14 years boosts his credibility. Boosts his credibility with inmates.
How's your week been? Good. Yeah? ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien? Yeah, hey. Welcome.
When I got locked up, I really hit a wall of just seeing the craziness of my life path up until then and on the incredible selfish decisions I've been making. My son was 9 years old. He was going to grow up without his dad. And I was just so deeply full of remorse and regret that I just literally started practicing meditation like my hair was on fire.
Freedom before I came here was just another word. I'd never been to prison before.
All you know is what the media and the movies say about prison, Take care of yourself, man. Somebody's gonna try to, take your manhood or something, you know what I mean? I'm thinking I'm gonna come in here and fight the world.
In a prison like Moran, there's a serious conflict waiting around any corner. It's an environment where people's worst behaviors are just right there, just under the surface.
When I first came in, fought with officers, would beat up anyone, would do the unthinkable, just because.
It's a vicious cycle because once you come to prison, your life just keeps tumbling, and it's like a never-ending wall that won't stop building unless you find some way to get over that wall, or at least in front of it.
What circumstances did they have to survive on the street to bring them to where they are now? Do we want to save those lives, or do we want to discard them?
The crimes I committed, I brought shame, to not only myself, but to those who I love, so just really trying to do something, to get out of that cycle. Somebody's giving us an opportunity, just to meditate and connect ourselves. And that's it's golden,
So sit up with that good posture. Just rest your hands on your legs. And just take a moment to just feel.
I mean, I've always thought that the people who survive are so much stronger than I could ever be. I asked Fleet how he survived and thrived the way he has. He credits meditation for having given him the strength to live his life in prison and come out not as much the worse for wear as most people do.
I don't have a release date, so I can only go home when they decide I can. So I learned to live day by day, and that helped me to deal with prison. And I could only do that being in the moment, being in the now.
You worked with all that we see here, a very complex and deep human reality. Can you share with us particular feelings and inner movements in working with the prisoners?
Well, it's really not different. It's the same.
The same.
Human beings, same emotional patterns. Maybe a prisoner did something in a short period of time that landed him behind bars. So there's that karma. But besides that, same as far as I could tell. It looked that way to me always,
Yes.
and looks that way.
Yes.
So it's really not that extraordinary. I think what's extraordinary is the situation of the incarcerated people. Meditation's the same. Maybe opportunity for meditation isn't quite the same, because prison is a somewhat deprived environment, more than somewhat, and educational opportunities are few. Facilities are not entirely adapted. Scheduling, some states require the presence of a volunteer for people to gather and practice meditation together. Those kind of restrictions make it difficult to practice in prison. And then there are the same issues which affect all of us in terms of motivation. You know, why would we practice? That's an individual decision. That's not a decision that everybody makes.
Why? Why to practice?
Yes. The motive is important. Very important. There has to be that willingness, as you heard some of the prisoners on this video say, or a couple of them, there has to be that willingness to look at one's own emotional state and how it relates to speech and behavior.
Yes. Emotion. This, the emotion, the basis of our being.
Working with emotion. Yes. Very basic. Maybe most basic.
Yes, and lots of supermarket spirituality are presenting meditation or Zen or being Zen. This means flying over and depassing and
Yeah, the spiritual supermarket,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And you have that in prison as much as you have it on the outside. Being able to recognize the supermarket, being willing to stop shopping, just to sit down, not looking for some kind of special effect, some kind of result.
No result.
Not particularly. Of course, we measure all the time. We're measuring ourselves all the time, of course. But in terms of the practice, we bring our expectation to it and treat it as expectation, rather than trying to live up to it. So we see the expectation as expectation. And that puts us back into the present. We see our thinking as thinking. Usually, when we're thinking, we don't know it. We go from thought to spoken word or to action in a kind of automatic chain reaction. The meditative process slows us down enough that we begin to see that we're thinking when we're thinking. And that helps to deconstruct the expectation.
This means to grow our capacity of observing the inner space in order to differentiate, to feel that now I'm thinking. Yeah. So
it's more like when we catch our thought in the moment of meditation and we return our attention to what we call the object of meditation, which is usually the breath, and we put our mind into the out-breath, and we go out with our out-breath, that interrupts the automatic chain reaction of thought to thought to thought, which is blind. It interrupts it.
and then another thought catching us.
Yes. Then another thought comes along, and another thought. And we keep coming back and coming back. That's the method. And you're right, over time, that makes us aware of the psychological space, so to speak, in which all of that is happening. So there's more spaciousness, you could say, when we get up from the meditation cushion, at least temporarily, and we bring that spaciousness out into our world. And that creates the opportunity to see our world fresh. And to play our music. So there's a kind of a cause and effect relationship between the deliberateness of the training of formal meditation and the ability to stick with the detail of our life in a mindful way. Which can be very inspiring if we wish to be in the present in our life. If we see the benefit of that, it can be very inspiring.
The space and the music
Yeah.
of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, no space, just screamings.
Just screamings and no music.
Yes, allowed me to offer a book from For You publishing house, Reconnecting, by Dr. Eric Pearl. Reconnecting, yes, with ourselves.
Yes, very much. Reconnecting with ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Instead of being disconnected, we have also in Romanian from your root master, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, training the mind. Yes, we recommend to.
That's a great
read.
practice text.
Yes.
For
yes.
exchanging oneself and other.
Yeah.
That's the content of that book. It's very practical.
And your book, Living Life Fully. The content of this book fact reflected by your presence, your rhythm, your way of looking to me, your way of smiling. Yes, this is a full life. Very lucky, very lucky. We're very lucky to, if we can feel this.
Yes, that's right. I think so. We're very lucky. If we realize how lucky we are, then we might seek to feel it also.
Yes.
Lucky to have this opportunity.
Yes, yes, and another book of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, Shambhala.
This is the classic text of the secular teaching stream that we were discussing before. This book is really something, and I recommend it.
Shambhala is a metaphor for this spaciousness.
Yes, it's a metaphor for, it's literally a metaphor for a kingdom wherein the citizens of whatever station, king, queen, street sweeper, housewife, child, elder, everybody participates in the path of living in the present. That's the literal meaning of that enlightened kingdom expressed in the myth of Shambhala. There was a movie made in the 1930s which was kind of an offshoot of this. It's not really an expression of it, but it's interesting. It's called Shangri-La. And that movie makes the presumption that there is such a place in the, I think, Central Asian mountains. And the movie's about finding it, coming over the mountain pass and arriving in paradise. But in our case, we would say the myth is just a myth. And the most important point is that human beings could conceive of such a thing. In other words, there's the yearning for it, and there's the idea of the possibility of it. So it's not exactly like a utopia or a 19th century dream or 1930s dream of paradise on earth, but rather it is a possibility which we could evolve personally in our lives based on connecting with our own goodness, our own fundamental goodness, and evolving that through the meditation practice, through the application of insights of meditation to daily life, and then creating a world domestically around that sense of upliftedness, that sense of relaxation, that sense of presence, and so forth. In that way, we have the building block of enlightened society.
Yes, this is Shambhala.
Yeah.
We only have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Karelis.
Thank you too.
For your presence beyond words and in our lives. We have to meet you personally in order to feel it. I think the people can, even in the television, feel your rhythm. And please accept to end the program with some flowers, some water, and your voice and the music. Thank you again.
Thank you. Life becomes a journey of the present moment. This is not a journey to a particular destination. Rather, it is a journey which unfolds beneath our feet as we take each moment as it is, we take the opportunity to connect with our own genuine heart, and unfold our basic goodness. It's a journey which takes us out of ourselves and makes us of service to the world. It's a journey without end. A journey where life and death are interwoven. A journey of tender sensibility and wakefulness combined. As Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche said, it's a journey without goal. Where life truly lived becomes the point.